Welcome everyone to our Connect with Carol. I am so excited to have you here. This is my expert interview series where I interview experts on all topics on mindset, wellness, and relationships. Today, I am interviewing a very special guest. I am so excited to introduce you to this person. TJ Kostecky is a soccer coach. That has been his profession for the last, I guess, 40 years of his life. And he has developed a program called Vision Training, in which he has helped thousands upon thousands of soccer players expand their perspective and improve their game. But he is also a motivational speaker, and he is now an author. We're going to be talking about all the things that TJ does for a living. So TJ, thank you so much for being here.
Caroline, I am over the moon excited to be here with you.
So fun fact about TJ that people don't know is that he has been inducted into the Ukraine Sports Hall of Fame. How on earth did you get a spot into the Ukraine Sports Hall of Fame, TJ?
In 2020, the president of the Hall of Fame reached out to me, and I'm getting chills that you had asked me that question, and I was shocked and obviously very humble to be selected. I think it's probably over my body of work that I've done. I've been to Ukraine several times. Also volunteering. I've done volunteer work with Vision Training Soccer and Vision Training for Life as well. And I was there during the Maidan, actually, when they were protecting Kiev at that time. And I've, over 40 years, having coached for so many decades, and some of the work I've done, I was really surprised. I mean, I'm honored. Wayne Gretzky's in the Hall of Fame. There's incredible people in there that are much more deserving than I. So I'm thankful that they would consider me.
And you are Ukrainian, right?
Yes, I am Ukrainian. Both of my parents were immigrants during World War II, and I grew up speaking Ukrainian. I'm still fluent right now, but I was born in this country. But yes, 100% Ukrainian on both sides.
That's amazing. Well, okay, so before we get started on really all the things that we're going to talk about, I want to share with our community how you and I met, because I think that is one of the most special ways to introduce you. I don't know TJ as a speaker or a soccer coach, right? Like, that's not how I know him. How I know him is as a father. And for me, that is very special, because anybody who's been in my community knows what a special relationship I had with my father. So long story short, in 2020, my son gets hired to do an acting project in South Korea, of all places. And when we arrive, there is a tutor that has been assigned to him for the 2 months that he's going to be working in South Korea, an American tutor, so that she can school him every day in between his acting. And that girl or woman, her name is Caroline, just like me, and she is the daughter of TJ Kostecky. Now, when we met, she and I were like two magnetic forces that were brought together by the universe. It was like the most incredible connection ever. We met literally at the checkout line, or at the customs office, coming off the plane. She was coming from Georgia, I was coming from Miami, and we just connected in that moment and kind of knew that we were going to be paired together in this project, and we were. And she is, and like I said, she's the daughter of TJ. So she and I start getting acquainted. We become really good friends. And she starts to talk to me about this relationship that she has with her father and about all the things that he's taught her. And it was the first time in my 40 years of existence that I had met someone that had almost exactly the relationship that I had with my father. I've met a lot of girls who have special relationships with their father, but they are not the daughters of a motivational speaker, personal development guru. I mean, to actually meet somebody that had such a parallel life, and Caroline is 20 years younger than me. So it's like, to see that parallel felt like such a magical coincidence. And TJ, I don't know if you know this,
Sí, o
actually.
sea, lo
Oh,
que
hang on one
normalmente
second. Let me mute. April, if you can, please let's mute everybody that comes in. Thank you, thank you. So I don't know if you know this, TJ, but up until that moment, had always experienced a lot of magic in my life and mysterious things. My father passed away in 2015, and after he passed, my life really was it felt very magical, but I didn't have a term for it. And one day I'm talking to Caroline, and I'm like, Caroline, this is so amazing that your father and you had this relationship, and I had a father, and blah, blah, blah. We start talking about the coincidences. And she says, oh, that's synchronicity. I said, what do you mean synchronicity? She, yeah, my father taught me that. That's synchronicity. That was a definition, a term, a part of my vocabulary that you gifted me, TJ. And I am so grateful for that. So you, for me, an act of synchronicity. Really have I cherish your relationship with your daughter, and I admire it, and I've been able to see how you live your life through that relationship. So when I learned that you had written a book called Eyes Up about having meaningful relationships, I was like, this is incredible. We have to share you with our people. So tell me, how did you what is your relationship with synchronicity? Like, how did you come into this language, into this world?
So yeah, I discovered it over time, being more perceptive. It starts with perception. The wider, the brighter, the deeper your perception is, 360 degrees. So I'm in my apartment right now, looking around. Your ability to gather a lot of information, process a lot of information, plan, perform, and persistence is the habit loop. When you're persistent about something, you don't have to think about it, it becomes automatic. When you're persistent about being perceptive, and what I mean by that is eyes open, judge less, accept more. Because what we tend to do since the origin of civilization is fight or flight, right? We're very careful of safety, so our brains are wired to really judge so often. But the challenge with judging is think about blinders on your head. When you judge too often how people look, how they talk, their language, their skin color, their religion, all these things, we start narrowing really, really tight. We start making assumptions. And most often, those assumptions eliminate the beauty in people, the beauty around us every single day, every single moment. So I started really thinking about it. And honestly, the origin happened about 9 years ago when I was on my own, unfortunately, surprisingly, divorced. And I was living in a small place about 10 minutes from home on the beach, a tiny, tiny apartment. And it was a January day, and the weather was horrible. There was a storm, the power went out, and I'm under all these blankets, freezing. And I'm thinking, is this kind of where my life has become or come to this? I thought I was a good person doing the right things. And here I am in this apartment freezing. And that was actually the start of the journey of really perceiving and processing and thinking about what's important in life and who's important in life. So I would take a lot of walks. I was along the beach. The good news is the beach was right there, and I would think a lot, and my eyes were wide open. And the more I read, prayed, meditated, connected with people in my universe that really loved me and cared about me, my first P, I call it, my perception become wider and brighter and deeper and richer. And I started attracting people into my universe, Caroline, into my world that were authentic, were real. And I became, I believe, more of an attractive human being, an attractive person as well. And I remember one of those days I was thinking, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my daughters, for Caroline and for Kate. I will always have them in my life, no matter what happens. And I was walking along Sandy Hook, which is a national park near my beach, and I got lost. and I came across a bottle to pick up, a bottle that was turned over, a wine bottle that was for trash, picking up to recycle it. And I turned it over, and the name on the bottle was Kate, my oldest daughter.
Wow.
And I knew at that
Wow.
moment that things are going to be good. I knew that what I'm thinking about, what I'm putting out in the universe, the signs are there that things are going to start turning and being okay. So being open to the signs, being open to the universe, that's the 5 P's that I've kind of developed out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to stop you there because I want to backtrack. You have 5 P's in your vision training program. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you, my first question is, those 5 P's, did you develop those 9 years ago as a result of this experience, or were those P's already in your life?
So they came out of that experience. They were not in my life prior to that point.
So you were a soccer coach,
Mhm.
but you weren't implementing vision training. That was the moment. So out of that despair, that divorce and being in that apartment, out of that despair was where vision training was born.
That's where vision training for life started emerging. And that's where, so there's vision training for soccer that I do and vision training for life. So originally it started vision training soccer. And this is something I also do globally, where I teach coaches and players how to scan and see the field, gather a lot of information. And that was also that discovery happened also on Sandy Hook as well. When I'm riding my bike, I'm trying to describe, how do I describe to people in a simple way about being open? And the piece came just riding my bike. It just happened. I was looking at the beach and the sand and the ocean, and I just thought about perception, and I was like, this is it. This makes sense. And if you think about it, is like a cycle. Okay, so it happens. It's a cycle, or pistons that are firing synchronistically. Can you picture that? So that's how I use the 5 Ps. So as in my lens now, it's become so automatic, that 5th P of persistency, about being perceptive and being open. The more open we are, we attract these people, things, events into our lives that just become rich and powerful. And these are the moments. So for example, when Caroline had connected with you and your son, her first P, I call it, perception, was wide and bright. She had seen your son before that. Before you two connected, she noticed him. And she saw, and she figured, she goes, this young boy, I believe, is part of my journey. You follow me? So her head was on a swivel. And then she saw you. Right. So that first P was wide. Her first P was wide and bright. If she was narrow, looking on her phone or not paying attention, more than likely that connection wouldn't have happened. But because she was looking, you follow me? And I remember when she was in the hotel for 2 weeks, right? You had to quarantine for 2 weeks in South Korea, which was unbelievable. And she sends me a picture from your book. And I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you. She just sends me a photo because you had gifted her your book, right? It was outside the door, one of the hotel folks or security guards. So she takes a photo, and I'm thinking, I go, Caroline, that's what I would write. I mean, I would think that, or I would want, like, what is that? I remember getting chills, and I'm getting chills right now, seeing that screenshot from South Korea. She goes, I'll tell you when I talk to you later on about who I met and what this is about. So
Wow.
so that circle, are you tracking? That circle closes, and it becomes, and I process it where you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing. And I look at it as sparks. There are sparks and events in our life. And the more open we are to look and pay attention to those sparks in our life, and then grab onto them and take them and make them work for you. So
Wow. I have chills, and I'm going to give you on my end of the story. So to corroborate what you just said, when you said that Caroline her eyes were wide open and that she perceived that my son was going to be in her journey, it was because, so we're standing in line at the airport, and this is, we're scared. We're going into this foreign country. We don't speak the language. We're going into a quarantine situation. People are in suits from head to toe. It's not a friendly environment at that moment. It was very, very precarious. And my son was wearing a hat, like I don't know what kind of hat it was. Maybe it was like a beret. I don't know what it was, like a little hat. And he was wearing a Hamilton sweatshirt or something, like acting sweatshirt. And because she was paying attention, her thought was, kid with that hat and that sweatshirt, he's got to be an actor, right? Like that kid has to be an actor. And that was her first clue that we were going to be connected some way. But we weren't even in that moment sharing what we were doing. So we both came in with it was a very strange situation, but it was like a code. She read through the code and she knew that I was going to connect with her. And then about the book, we were in quarantine, and every day these suited up Koreans would come into our room and take our temperature. And the first day that we were there, this lady came and took my temperature. Not very friendly, but the second day she already knew me a little better, right? I'd already connected with her. And I said, hey, do you happen to go to the 7th floor? I was like, let's say I was on the 9th floor. Do you happen to go to the 7th floor? She says, yes, I go to the 7th floor every day. I said, do you take a temperature in room 718? Yes, I take that temperature every day. I said, can you give him this book? And I handed her my book, which for those of you that haven't read it, it's Looking Over the Edge, which is right here, Looking Over the Edge. So, and then she read the book during quarantine. She had nothing else to do. I had an open audience, right? There was nothing else to do. It was my book or watch Korean television. So that was it. So that was my side of the story. Just to corroborate what you're saying, and you're right, we connected. And then every time that she would tell me something about you, TJ, I would say, that's what my father would say. Wow. That's how my father would react. I talk to my dad every day. I talk to my dad every day. I looked at it as you were a postcard. You and Caroline were a postcard that my father sent to me to South Korea to let me know that I was going to be okay.
Yeah, and that's the spark. Postcard is another way of saying that's where you are. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're the place you're supposed to be at. And as we go through life, and from what you're just sharing, the more we do that, we start attracting the right people into our lives, and we start becoming the human being, the person that we want to be even more, an attractive human being. And it's a gift. It's a gift for us to be here with you. It's a gift to be on with all the folks here. This is a gift to be with you, all of you. And when I start really thinking about just the simplicity of everything and being open, I found that things are happening that are just out of my control in a beautiful way, in a great way. And so that's kind of where the 5 P's has come out of.
Okay. Yeah. So I got the first P, which is perception. Mm-hmm. But what are the other? And I also caught that persistency was the 5th one. Yeah. But what are the 2, 3, and 4 in between? What are the 5 P's for vision training?
Perceive, process, plan, perform, and persist. Perceive.
Okay. Perceive, process,
plan, perform, and persist. And processing is what you and Caroline were doing. Caroline was processing. She saw the sweatshirt, right? You follow me? All those things she's processing. And then she's planning, she's going to connect with you. So part of the plan is I'm going to, whatever that looks like, right? And that's something that you, and then connecting and having that conversation, performing, right? And then the persistence is you with the book going, you know what? I've developed a connection with this person outside the hotel that's all dressed up, and I want to get this book to Caroline. You didn't have to do that, but you realize that this is going to be important. And even though you can't walk out of your hotel room and go up to the 9th elevator and do that, and this woman might not do it for you because of the rules and the COVID. I understood how people were, when they stepped out the door, there was like a warning, right? I remember Caroline was telling me how dangerous it was. You could have been sent home, but you're like, I'm going to be persistent because this is important to do. And when you're persistent about things and constant and consistent with it, then we start becoming successful. We start growing. Things that we want to achieve, that we want to manifest and visualize in our lives, start becoming exactly what we want, that persistent. So in my model, and it's a very simple model, and again, I'm not an expert. I just have experience. So when you introduce me, thank you for introducing me. I'm not an expert at all. I just have a lot of experience, an experience that I've gone through that I'm sharing. But the first P, perception and persistence, are the two in my lens that are so critical and important. Because as I'm always applying that first P and reminding myself, I'm learning, right? When you're wide, deep, and bright, your perception, what do? You gather information, right? When we gather information, what do? We're learning with information. Information is gold. The folks that are with us right now, what we're talking about, what we're listening is gold. So when I have that information, I'm growing. When I'm growing, I'm moving forward in life. So it's a very simple model, but a reminder for us and a reminder for me. And when I fall back and I start getting into a judging phase, because we do that, we naturally judge, and I catch myself realizing, oh my gosh, why did I judge this person? I shouldn't have, because she or he has incredible gifts. And in my book, I talk about stories about finding the best in others. My last chapter is how to find the best in others and find the good in others. And how to rewire your brain, refresh your lens to see the good in people, and get the good out of them, not just see the good in them, but how you can get the good from others.
It's interesting that you should say that, because I was recently talking to one of my clients. I'm a life coach, and
Yes.
in one of our sessions, we were talking about in-laws, and that sometimes our relationships with our in-laws can be very difficult because we
Yeah.
have different personalities, and there's judgments, and there's all these other things. And I was
Words.
talking to my client, and I was like, what if you were to approach your in-law with curiosity instead of judging your in-law for the history of incidents that have created this perception about this person? What if you were to try to learn things about that person that would actually make you like that person? What would that look like? Could you get that done? So I love that you're talking about that, because I think that is the key to emotional intelligence, right? The key to emotional intelligence is being curious, where I think curiosity and perception and being open, same thing, right? You're being curious to find, well, is there good in other people? And then you start finding different alignment.
100%. When you're sharing your story, I think about forgiving. One of the really important qualities for us to have is the ability to forgive people that have hurt us, or that are doing things that we don't agree with. In the workshops I do, because I do workshops on leadership, I think you're aware of that, where I take the 5 Ps and I expand that, vision training for life workshops, where I do it for companies, I do it for students, for faculty and amateur teams, and some pro teams. And I share about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben's prison in South Africa. When he was let out, the day he was let out, he stood in the doorway, and before he walked out, he turned and he forgave the guards that had incarcerated him for 3 decades. He said to himself, I have to forgive these people so that I don't carry this heavy burden of anger on my shoulders if I'm going to make a difference in my country and make a difference in the world. And gosh, did he ever make a difference? He's continuing to make a difference, made a difference in South Africa. So when I think about what he did in that setting, right? You follow me? And having that courage and that empathy and that love to forgive, I think about my people that I may be angry at or jealous, whatever it is, right? That are treating me however I want to be treated. I pause and I think about, what is a good quality that person has, right? And that's what you're saying, the curiosity. That's a great example. Looking at people in your universe, whether it's a spouse, uncle, aunt, a boss, a colleague, and how can we look at things that they're doing and really also validating the things that they're doing. So a very important part of our connection as human beings, is to validate folks and validate them in an authentic way. So finding as you mentioned about the curiosity part, something interesting about them. Can we find a quality that we could validate in those folks and let them know that we see something in them? Can I share a quick story?
This is all you, man. We're here for you.
So, so I live in this tiny village. I'm in New York State, so don't be fooled by the picture behind me if you can see of a beach and a beautiful beach. And there's a northeastern.
You're in Delray.
What's that?
It's like you're in Delray, Florida.
I'm not. I'm in Tivoli, New York, and there's a northeasterner that's coming tomorrow. They're expecting 1.5 to 2 feet of snow tomorrow, right? So I live in this tiny village of less than 2,000 people, and there's a post office. And when I first moved here, the woman behind the post office that would give me my mail was not a real happy person. She was really angry, and she would always be gruff. And your mailbox is, you haven't taken stuff from your mailbox when I would travel away. Anyway, but I would engage in conversation. That's me. I engage everyone in conversation, and I try to connect with everyone. And I believe that there's goodness in people, and there's a reason why they're angry. They're not angry at me. There's something in their life, perhaps, that they're angry. So I would engage in conversation, and she would still not be the nicest person to me, and I could see how she treated others. But I would get her to talk. This is over several months, by the way. And then one day we're talking about things that we like, foods, whatever. Something nuts came in the mail. And she goes, "I love pecans." I'm like, "Oh, pecans, great, good." Well, I was going down to Georgia to visit the girls, and Savannah has pecans. So I bought some pecans and I brought them back up. And I went in, I was going to give it to her as a gift. Okay, these pecans. And I would carry them every day, but she wasn't, for like 2 weeks, she wasn't around. So I would carry my pecans in to get my mail from a box. She's not there. Second day, for 2 weeks. Finally, I decided I'm going to just drop them off with a note. So I drop off the pecans. And then I leave. I travel because I travel a lot. And then I come back and I go to my mailbox, and she's talking to a customer, and I'm at my P.O. box, and she says, "Well, that's the guy in the Ukrainian Sports Hall of Fame over there." She says to the woman, and I'm not even paying attention. I'm thinking she's talking to. She goes, "Which guy? That guy?" And I turn and I said, "Mary, how do you know I'm in the Ukrainian Sports Hall of Fame?" She goes, "I've looked into you. I've followed you. And by the way, thank you for those pecans," she says to me. Okay. Well, what happened over the next couple months? She became softer, gentler, nicer. And not just to me, Caroline, not just to me. Her disposition changed. Okay. So that was not my goal. My goal to give her the pecans was not like, I'm going to try to change her, become blah, 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 blah. That was not my goal. I just wanted to do something kind for her. Do you follow me? To show her that I care about her without any expectation whatsoever. I have my people, I do my thing. But when we look for opportunities to find the best in others, it changes. And let me tell you, she retired recently. The last 3 months, her happiness quotient was like, boom. And I'd like to think that the conversations I had with her that were deeper and honest and authentic, and being curious about her life, letting her know that she was a human being. She was not just being transactional with me, but we're having a transformative conversation. You follow me? So vision training for life is also about how can we be transformative in people's lives? How could we find ways of giving more and taking less? That's another piece of my book and Eyes Up, is how do we find that? So I talk about in the workshops is every day we could have opportunities to be transformative with people by doing the little things. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does make sense, but you know the thought that came to my mind was, well, that's great, TJ, that's awesome. But what about the people that are busy, that they're focused in their lives, they're running around, maybe they don't have time to sit and chat with somebody at the post office. They're working, they're going about their business, and they just want to get things done. And what about if they don't necessarily care to build relationships with the person at the post office? Why does this matter? Why is it important?
Well, research has shown that when you're selfless, when you're happy, when you give more, your happiness quotient goes up. All research shares that. When you're happy, you're more successful. It's not, success doesn't equal happiness. It's lead to happiness. Happiness leads to success. By giving more, by selflessness, being selfless, taking the time to compliment someone, seeing the good in others, our happiness goes up. Our productivity goes up. We become more productive. So that busyness we're talking about, if we're siloed, very narrow, we're not connecting with people, our happiness, our success, our productivity actually levels off. And that's all research that supports these ideas. So finding ways of reaching out and connecting with people is a crucial part of your journey in terms of also discovering and learning and connecting. We're using the word connecting. When you connect with people and the two of you grow. All of a sudden you discover things that are beneficial for both of you. I could help you, you could help me. So being really busy, is an excuse. Time, the one finite thing we have is time. We all know that. We've made time to be here together, all of us. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And during that time, we want to be very intentional, meaningful in what we're talking about, what we're doing. And if you incorporate those 5 P's, especially that first P in your everyday life, you'll find that your life becomes richer. And it's simple ways. So one of the ways I think about is do a little bit of a list for yourself, a goal list, a daily goal list. What I counsel folks is have a list when you wake up. One would be, today I'm gonna find time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 minutes, to connect with someone in my universe and have a meaningful conversation. That's what I'm going to do this week. Every day, I'm going to have a meaningful conversation with someone to start working on reaching out and connecting with people and finding something interesting and good within them. Does that make sense? So that I could be comfortable having that, because maybe I'm not comfortable with it. So I don't mean go out there and start talking to everybody on the street. That's not what I'm saying. But take 2 to 3 minutes to connect with someone. Start building that habit. Does that make sense? I had a project I did when I taught a sports psychology class at LIU Brooklyn for 20 years, and I called it the Positive Project. It was sports science majors, athletic trainers, sport managers, exercise physiologists, future coaches, Division I athletes, high level, high end, high stress Division I athletes that were going to mentor folks in their journey. It was a Positive Project was this: Brooklyn, New York now. I want you to find somebody over 3 weeks that provides a service for you, but you don't have any kind of a connection with, aside from their doing a service transactional. You follow me? And over 3 weeks, I want you to see if you could build a meaningful connection with them. Can you get them to ask a question about you, a complete stranger, within those 3 weeks? And how would you do that? That's the project. So I remember I did it in one gal, and I talk about this in the book, and she was a softball player. She's like, we came back after 3 weeks. She goes, Coach TJ, I'm gonna tell you, I thought this was a dumb project. I really did at first. I'm like, why am I going out? Nobody wants to talk to anybody in Brooklyn. So she picked her, in a bagel shop, a woman in her bagel shop that gives her a bagel every other day, right? It was a mom, and she came by one day, and her hair was done differently, and she complimented on her hair. She said, your hair looks beautiful with your eyes. How would she compliment her? And her eyes lit up. And then the next day, there was another thing that she added some tomato on her. So they started having that connection, right? So the third day she went in, the woman sees that she has an LIU sweatshirt on. She says, you play at LIU? My daughter plays softball. Can you tell me what it's like? Wow, we're going to come to a softball game and watch you play softball. She goes, now every time I go there, she has my bagel ready. She's got tomato on it. She's got everything. I'm like psyched. I am so stoked to go in. It's for my bagel shop. Why? Because she went out of her way to recognize, to validate, and make a human connection. How cool is that? I'm getting chills right now just thinking about that story. And I've told that story 100 times. That's all it takes, is just doing that, and enriching that person's experience. And you know what? When we do that, that person could be really not in a good spot. So by making that connection, you just changed and flipped her and made her feel good. So what you did is you made the world a better place. You made her life better. So little things like that, little shifts. Those are the shifts in perspective, subtle shifts that I talk about. Not having to do giant things, it's those little things being intentional.
Yeah, I love that. And I have so many questions going on in my head. There's so many things,
Oh,
so many comments. One quick thing that I have started doing myself is I've made a personal challenge. So anybody that wants to start this, I think this might be helpful as a way to start implementing what you're saying, TJ. One of the things I've started doing is when I go to a store like the Walgreens or Whole Foods, or I'm going to go to a checkout line, I've been intentionally trying to put my, not trying, I've been intentionally putting my phone away so that I could look at the cashier's eyes when I'm checking out. And that doesn't necessarily lead to conversation, but what I found was that I was very rudely either talking on the phone or looking at my phone, and I was ignoring people like the cashiers as if they weren't even there, like they were robots. And it started to feel ugly that I was so distracted. So that's been a challenge of mine recently, that I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional with people at the cashiers, at the checkouts, just looking at them in the eyes, smiling and engaging in the transaction, even though it may not be more than 30 seconds, but at least I'm acknowledging their existence. So,
that's huge. I believe that's hugely important. And I believe our young people need more of that type of counseling and mentorship, because we have this thing, this thing over here is, uber powerful. And
yeah.
having having eye contact, reading people, in the workshops and in the book, I talk about nonverbal communication. Some research has demonstrated that up to 79% of communication is nonverbal, and also tone of the voice that we use. Right? Are you emitting the emotion that you're feeling? Well, if I'm on the phone all the time, okay, and I'm not looking at you, really reading your sadness, are you happy, your anger, empathy? If I haven't developed the skills to understand what you're doing, how am I going to connect with you in a meaningful way, an authentic way? If you're my spouse, a child, my boss, a coworker, anyone, right? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
a lot of the work that I do is I do a little project that in my workshops, that there's 10 emotions: happy, sad, angry, bored, confused, joyful, and you have to circle 5 of these, and you have the list of 10, and I have to communicate to you 5 of the 10 non-verbally, right? And you have to guess them. And if you guess one wrong, I have to recreate that emotion, because I'm not emitting the emotion that I'm really feeling. And one of the 2 ones that my daughters, Caroline and Kate, used to say to me is angry and serious. They would think that I was angry. They go, "Daddy, why are you upset?" I'm like, "You're angry." Like, I'm just thinking. But my thinking was like a angry look. That's not good. I don't want my kids, right? I don't want my teammates, players that I'm mentoring, to think that I'm ticked, right? That's not what we want at all, right? So being in touch and being aware of what we're meeting, communicating. And if we're on our phone, or if we have those blinders on, like you said, because I'm too busy, I got a lot of work to do. Well, guess what? We're missing our relationships. People and connecting with human beings is the most important thing in our life. Community, research across the board, having a rich community is what extends your life. Okay, you got to eat right, you got to exercise, you got to do all the good sleep, proper hours. But the one consistent thread all over the world for longevity is those people that feel that they're part of a community, a real community, live the longest. So building a community, building community is not walking around with blinders saying I'm too busy. We're all busy. Life is busy. It's a choice of how we want to take our time and manage our time. And it's a decision, a choice that each of us can make. And we recognize the importance of connecting with people. That's important. Another exercise that I do is
Wait,
this week.
TJ,
Yes.
before you go to the next exercise, I want to take you back. Actually, go tell me the exercise, and then I'm going to take you back. But let's
Yeah.
pin that, because I want to take you back to a point. So tell me that second exercise.
Another goal, like different goals to do in the work. One of them that I've done is this week. I'm going to connect with someone that I care about that I haven't spoken to in a long time. So one of my goals this week is to do that. And I want to reach out to a mentor or a close friend or family member, tell them that, hey, you've been really important in my life. Thank you for supporting me when I needed that support, or believing in me, or giving me the criticism, the authentic criticism that I needed, and not just telling me, yeah, what you're doing is the right thing when it really is not the right thing. And I did that last week. I connected with 2 different mentors, and I said, I love you. I care about you. I'm thankful for you, for what you've done in my life. Letting them know that what they're doing is important. Yeah, because as we do more of that, then it becomes, there's a ripple effect. They're going to do more and more of that and go, you know what, this is pretty important. So I think I need to do more. I need to look at how I'm mentoring others in my life. So this is just another little exercise. I mentioned the one exercise about finding a stranger, but don't you have to do a stranger? That's just one. There's so many things we can do that are very intentional, that are not very time consuming. That's all.
Yeah. You know, I used to host, and I haven't done one of these in a long time, but I used to host these 28-day core challenges. You have your 5 Ps, I have core, clarity, organization, resilience, and emotional intelligence. And we would do these 28-day challenges, and every week there would be different challenges that you would do. And week 1, which was the C week, was connection. And we would have these little, like, almost like a little bingo where you get to choose which challenge you're going to do for that week, on how you're going to connect with somebody, whether it's, you know, writing a letter to your mom, or connecting with a friend, or going on a date with your spouse, or going on a date with yourself, etc. But anyway,
Sure.
I want to take you back. This is where I was said we're going to pin this. I want to take you back to that moment when you were at the beach with that bottle that said Kate on it, and you actually came up with these 5 Ps. And the reason I want to take you back there is because you said that was 9 years ago, and that's where you first had this idea of perception, right? So you had your eyes wide open. You were in a really bad place. You had just gotten divorced. You thinking about your daughters. You get this bottle, you see Kate, and you knew things were going to be okay. My Siri apparently wants to be involved in the conversation. So you have this moment, but you were going through a really bad time. You were in this little tiny apartment. What's happened to your life? You're now divorced. You didn't think that you were going to end up there. You know, this was not a good time in your life. And I want you to take me to, how did you get to plan, process, perform, persistence? How did that become relevant in your experience, what you were going through, so that you could get out of the funk you were in at that moment?
Well, it started very small. It started with gratitude. It started with gratitude. When that event occurred, and I realized that, I paused and said, what can I control? What can't I control? Because if we think about the stuff that stresses us out, so much of what stresses us out, Caroline, are things that we can't control.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a point where I can't go back. I can't relive my life. That's not happening. So what can I control? I can control how I respond. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is an incredible book. Viktor Frankl survived 3 concentration camps, lived till he was 88 years old. What he discovered in the concentration camps were that those people that lived the longest were the ones that had something to look forward to. Writing a book, painting, getting an education, traveling, reconnecting, something to look forward to. Those that did not perished sooner. So reading, praying, meditating, all those things that I did, walking, thinking, when all that led to, I started waking up, and I'm spiritual. So I woke up and I'm thankful to the Lord. The first thing, and I do this every morning. I've done it I haven't had a bad day in 8 years, Caroline. And I don't exaggerate, and I don't make up stories. Why? Because I choose to have a great day. So the first thing I do when I wake up every morning, I did it this morning. I wake up, thank you, Lord, for blessing me by being alive. 8 times I've cheated death. I'm very fortunate. 8 times. You don't have to go through what I've gone through, but 8 times that happened. And for the air that I breathe, and I breathe air that fills, and I say that because oxygen gives us life. So I'm thankful for the oxygen that I'm breathing, because the last thing we're going to have is air to breathe. So when I wake up, I am thankful that I have air to breathe. So it starts at that simple moment. Does that make sense? Not all these other things. Right away, my lens and my days, like, I'm just thankful to be here with you. so that I could have this conversation with everyone here. And then I do a little meditation where I feel it fills my lungs, my veins, my heart, my brain. And then immediately I think about the three things or people the day before that I'm most grateful for. So when I woke up this morning, I thought about the great conversation I had with my oldest daughter, Kate. We spoke for over an hour and how her life is going and how she's perceiving things that are she's thankful for, and she's taking events that haven't gone well and finding the good in them. She's telling me this. I'm just listening. And I walked around Tivoli here. It was a beautiful day. It was balmy in the 40s, which is balmy for here. All right. And then I thought about the meal. I cooked some salmon last night and some rice and a nice salad, and it was delicious. That was my gratefulness this morning. And I'm having a great day. And then the rest of the morning, I was looking forward to connecting with you and already visualizing, seeing how well this is going to go. Already picturing that the folks that are listening to this are going to take one little part of what we're talking about, and they're going to add that to their life, and their life is going to be better. Just one little piece. I know that's going to happen. And it's going to have to happen. There's will be a ripple effect. The people that they touch today, tomorrow, the next day, their day is going to be a better day. So that's how it's come to this point. That's how I've come to this point. So I started doing that. So tomorrow, the first thing I'm going to do when I wake up, I'm going to think of you, and I'm going to think of the group, the audience. That's the first thing I'm going to think about. What kind of a day am I going to have tomorrow?
A great day.
A great day. Thank you. Some people in the workshop say you're going to have a good day. I go, I don't have good days. I only have great days. Why? Because I choose. We have a thing called the myelin sheath in our brain, right? So I have coffee here, right? Coffee is right next to me. You see me pick it up. I'm picking it up like this. I've done it so many times. If I was a child, I would have to go with two hands and pick up the coffee, right? That's how our myelin sheath works. You put good ideas, you put belief, love, care, confidence, it sticks. You put doubt, confusion, anger, jealousy, it sticks. It sticks. So I make sure that my myelin sheath, my brain is finding the good and helping, but being smart and safe. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking, knowing to stay out of danger. Please know that. But I make sure that my brain is filled with the right stuff. And what happens is there's energy that I give that's positive, and people are attracted to me, and I'm attracted to those people. It just happens that way. And this has happened over 8-9 years. And now I'm writing a book, and I have a publisher that gave me an advance. And I have a senior editor that loved the first draft, which it's unexplainable. You follow me? But this is what has happened.
So you said that you haven't had a bad day in 8 years. Have you had bad moments? Have you had bad experiences, or have you just been blessed with you haven't had a dent in the road?
Let's unpack that. Thank you. No, there's moments, there's things that happen that are sad for sure. There's situations that are sad. I cry every day. I cry with joy, and sometimes I cry with, but I tear up every single day. We had an experience yesterday, a racial situation in our school, and I was tearing up. I was really sad for an event that happened. Very, very, very sad. And in my office, I sat with my boss. And I just got emotional, and I said, hey, I apologize for getting emotional, but this shouldn't be happening to this person. And he goes, no, I get it, TJ. No, you don't have to apologize. It's wrong. But that didn't determine my outlook of my day. You follow me? Having that sadness, empathy. Yeah. I'm a human being. I have feelings. So, but the day was still a great day because of all these things in my lens that I see that I'm thankful for. And reminding myself, again, going back to that first P, the perception and the persistence, reminding myself about the things I'm grateful for. You follow me? But not being narrow and closed to events that are happening. Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking that.
So we have somebody on the chat who wrote, and this is, we're talking about creating these meaningful relationships, and he has such a great question, especially for a father like yourself. He has a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And he wants to know, how can he work on developing a more meaningful relationship with his 3-year-old and 2-year-old now to ensure, to pave the road for a better relationship in the future?
Great. Great question. I think a couple things that I could share that in my lens of experience is one is that we want to support our children, but we also want to empower them. We want to allow them to experience things, and we want to allow them to fall. We don't allow them to fall so they can get up, because our lives are not about climbing. Our lives are about falling, getting up, falling, getting up. We all fall. Those that survive, endure, succeed are the ones that get up and don't have other people artificially supporting them, helping them to get up. So that would be my advice to that father, is be there. And then when they do fall or something happens, unpack that. You can unpack that with them. But as they learn to become resilient human beings, and knowing that you love them and you care about them, you're always there for them, they are gonna thrive. They're gonna thrive in the world. And they'll find that they could do anything that they want to do and believe they want to do if they have that experience. And the ability to make mistakes too. There's a great book that I recommend, if I can, in my workshop. It's called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. And that was a book reading I did with my team. I do a book reading every winter with my men's team. And we read that, and I actually gave Caroline and Kate and Dan, my son-in-law, a copy of the book as well, The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Daniel interviewed over 4 years, 8 various successful groups: a comedy troupe in Manhattan, Pixar Entertainment, the Navy SEALs, San Antonio Spurs basketball team. Popovich has been there for 2 decades, very successful coach. And ready, a family of thieves in Europe. Very eclectic group. What is the common thread that all of them had? Well, here's a common thread they had. One is that the bosses, the leaders, were vulnerable. I don't know the answer to that. What do you think? Can you help me? They're vulnerable. They don't have all the answers, because when you don't have all the answers, folks that are working with you realize that they don't have to be perfect. You know, if he doesn't have the answer, I might not have the answers, right? Being vulnerable. 2 is safety. Is all these companies, all these organizations, it was a safe place to work, to make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. When you make a mistake, you learn. And when you learn, you discover. Innovation comes from learning, right? We innovate not by finding a solution the first time. That's not how it happens, right? Over and over, failing, and then discovering. And then the third part is having a purpose, is making sure that there's a clear purpose. All those organizations knew what their purpose was, where they were going. Did you drop a thing about Oprah? Was that you that you said about having know where you're going?
Yes.
That was you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When they asked her, they said, what makes a successful business? They knew where they were going, right? I think it was something like that. I'm paraphrasing. So all those organizations, you ask anyone in the organization, they all knew what the purpose was. So knowing what your purpose is, what your ethos is, what you're all about. Yeah.
Well, and if we were to just grab those 3 concepts that you just stated and apply them to Rafael and his 2-year-old and his 3-year-old, what came to me was, be vulnerable with your kids, making sure that they don't think you're the hero all the time, right? Like they get to be their own hero. You don't have to save them from everything. So be the hero, be the guide, not the hero. And create safety for them. When they fall, they know that they have their mommy and their daddy that are going to be there to love them, or their dad in this case, that are going to be there to love them and support them and protect them, and let them fail, but without judgment and without that harshness. And be intentional, have that purpose of being an intentional parent. Having the purpose, your end goal is to create a meaningful relationship with your children. And because you have that purpose, your actions will align with that purpose. So there you go. The key to having great relationships with your kids in a 30-second snippet.
You're recording this, right?
Yeah, this is recorded.
Oh, you just said how you just summarized it is absolute gold. This needs to go out into the universe. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for
Well,
doing
and I think about it, because as you were talking, that is a relationship I had with my dad. And like you, my dad was like, I'm not a parenting expert, but you are people that have followed that path. You've been vulnerable, you've created safety, and you're purpose driven. And I think your relationship with your daughter and my relationship with my father speaks for itself. Uh, the last thing was, we're running out of time. The last thing that I want to ask you. So you talked about these 5 Ps, and we've talked a lot about perception and persistency. That's been like the main goal of this conversation, and creating these meaningful relationships and these meaningful connections. And this is just me. I'm just curious. How does that impact or help your soccer players on the field? Like, how does that um, um, create better soccer players? I'm super curious about that, because I think that we're all on a field. We're all athletes in one way, in our businesses, in our lives. And, like, I'd like to know for my flag football kids or my actor
it.
son, um, how does these steps make better athletes, humans, business owners, etc.?
Well, it's actually carries over to how you just wrapped up the 3 ideas from the culture code. We're every team, every group must communicate. Must communicate. How we communicate is super important. They did one of the studies that I talk about is they researched over 300 successful coaches and over 80,000 behaviors. And these are the 2 most common ways that people communicated. One is to let people know that they did well. Caroline, how you just wrapped that up, what I talked about was exactly, we need to have the whole world listen to that. You see how I did that with you? I validated you and let you know that what you did was amazing. Because sometimes we need folks to tell us that. You didn't need to necessarily, but I'm just giving you that example. So as we communicate, that's the pass. Thanks for that pass. That's the ball. I mean, thanks for covering my back. I just got beat on the field and you were there. Appreciate you, right? Reminding me about this, right? So validating others, right? So one is communicating that. The other part is differential feedback, where corrective feedback and then belief. So, next time, Caroline, when we're on the field, right, when you're clearing the ball, you're in the back and you're heading it, don't head it right back into the attacking players, because the ball comes right back at us. You understand? So what I want you to do is when you're clearing the ball out on defense, make sure you clear it out wide, either out of bounds to a teammate. You got that, Caroline? I know you can do it. I've seen you do it before. You see how I phrase that? The corrective feedback, don't put it back into the middle where the opponent gets it, put out wide. By the way, I've seen you do that. I know you can do it. Belief. I know you can do it. When people believe in us, there's incredible things we can achieve when someone believes in you. So understanding those are the words, how we use our words to motivate others. Do you follow me? So using differential feedback and also affirmation when we need to use affirmation.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Well, we are almost out of time. I have loved this conversation, and I feel like we can have another hour conversation. So I'm going to have to bring you back. In the meantime, can you tell me how people can get in touch with you? Because if you guys don't know, TJ has written a book called Eyes Up, and we've been talking about a lot of the concepts from that book today. And I want to make sure that you find out when that book is coming out. I think it comes out January 9th, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes.
I want to make sure that people are, stay tuned and are following you and are ready for when the book comes out. So how can they stay in touch with you, TJ?
Great. Thank you for asking. I'm very thankful for that. So it drops January 9th. Pre-sale on Amazon and all the other places will be in June, sometime in June. It's Eyes Up. Matt Holt Publishing is the company, Matt Holt Publishing Company. They could follow me. Probably the easiest way is Instagram, TJ Kostecky. Just put my name in on Instagram and follow me, and I'll follow you back. And then I also have a website. It's called visiontrainingforlife.com. If you want to drop that in, visiontrainingforlife.com. You go right to my website and you could see and hear about things that I'm doing around the country, around the world, workshops on leadership and some of the things that you get out of those workshops. But TJ Kostecky on Instagram, and then Vision Training for Life is my website.
Well, I have loved this. Thank you guys. If you can put it on the chat, how amazing this has been and any takeaways that you've had. I personally, I'm huge on emotional intelligence. You know, you've touched on clarity, you've touched on emotional intelligence, you've touched on resilience. That's basically core, right? So I feel like we are so aligned in everything that in our mindsets and everything that we share. And it's such a privilege to be able to interview you and to get your nuggets of wisdom for these people. Thank you so much for all of this. And people are saying they're so grateful and thanking you for this awesome talk. So thank you, TJ, for giving me your time.
Thank you for inviting me and sharing this beautiful moment together. Thank you so much.
Okay. I hope you guys have an amazing week and that you spring forward with meaningful connections and meaningful relationships, and that no matter what your week looks like, you keep your eyes up. Thank you, TJ. Bye-bye, everybody.